Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. Tens of thousands of people marched across the country today in Minneapolis, Los Angeles, New York, Chicago, Cleveland, many of them braving sub-zero temperatures to protest the police state that Donald Trump is attempting to build before our eyes. A police state uses its power to crush dissent, to terrorize the populace, to force them to submit to its political will. It is a perversion of the policing power. And for the past year, we have watched the federal government, particularly the law enforcement aspects of it, transform under Trump. As armed federal agents push into communities into accepting his wins or suffering the consequences. We have now masked secret police who have shot two nonviolent protesters dead in the streets while people recorded on their camera phones, Renee Good and Alex Pretty. We still don't even know the identities of some of those agents who work for the government who shot and killed them. Instead today, we got the President of the United States calling the man who was shot and killed on the street a, quote, agitator and perhaps insurrectionist. MS Now is now reporting that ICE is planning to move into Ohio next week to target thousands of Haitian migrants, thousands of whom received explicit permission from the government to stay and to work. So this is not stopping. Those masked agents are still grabbing citizens, taking their pictures and entering them into a database, then confronting them on the streets and calling them by their name. Today, multiple current and former officials revealed to the New York Times that ICE is using two facial recognition programs in Minnesota and using cell phone and social media tools to monitor people's online activity and potentially hack into phones. And agents are tapping into a database built by the data analytics company Palantir that combines government and commercial data to identify real-time locations for individuals they are pursuing. Today, they topped it all off by coming for the journalists. Feds arrested four people, including former CNN anchor Don Lemon and an award-winning independent journalist, Georgia Fort, in connection with an anti-ICE protest earlier this month that interrupted a service at a church where one of the pastors is also an ICE field director. In fact, reporter Georgia Fort was awoken in the dead of night by a knock on her door from masked DEA agents, the Drug Enforcement Agency. Why are they there? As they waited at her doorstop and looked in her windows, she posted this message to social media.
I wanted to alert the public that agents are at my door right now. This is all stemming from the fact that I filmed a protest as a member of the media. It's hard to understand how we have a constitution, constitutional rights, when you can just be arrested for being a member of the press. We've seen all these violations. All right, you guys, I gotta go. They're knocking.
Yep, she's coming right now.
Little context here. Last year, the former Speaker of the State House of Minnesota was shot and killed, assassinated by a man who showed up at her door pretending to be law enforcement. So just put that in your head. So then Fort, the vice president of the National Association of Black Journalists in Minnesota, who was one of two reporters in the courtroom when George Floyd's killer was sentenced, was taken away in the cold by those same masked, kitted out DEA agents. The feds are claiming that Don Lemon and Fort were agitators of the church protest who conspired to, quote, injure, oppress, threaten, and intimidate multiple persons, including the clergy, staff, and congregants, depriving them of their constitutional right to free religion. I'm not making that up. That is the claim here. But as you can see for yourself, and we've been doing a lot of see for yourself recently because of the lies that emanate from this administration, here is footage of Don Lemon in that church during that protest.
We're not part of the activists, but we're here just reporting on them. So I'm just going to be as respectful as possible. I'm not here to intimidate anybody. I'm just here to chronicle and to get some answers.
Since that protest nearly 2 weeks ago, Donald Trump's Department of Justice has been trying to charge Lemon. In fact, last week, a federal magistrate judge and an appeals court rejected the charges as baseless. I mean, again, we said this a lot on this show. This basically never happens, right? Federal magistrate judges never knock the feds back on this sort of thing. And then they're never, ever appealed. And then it's certainly not the case that appellate court rejects it. But Lemon predicted back then that they weren't finished with them.
I know the Trump administration doesn't have a healthy respect for journalism or journalists because they attack journalists at every measure. And they do that because they know the truth is not on their side. The Constitution is not on their side. Donald Trump lies more than he breathes. This is not a victory lap for me because it's not over. They're going to try again, and they're going to try again. And guess what? Here I am. Keep trying. That's not going to stop me from being a journalist. You're not going to diminish my voice.
This morning, they arrested Lemon in Los Angeles as he prepared to cover the Grammy Awards. All the defendants were arraigned in court today. Afterwards, Georgia Fort emerged from the courthouse and was thronged by supporters, and Lemon struck a defiant tone.
I have spent my entire career covering the news. I will not stop now. In fact, there is no more important time than right now, this very moment, for a free and independent media that shines a light on the truth and holds those in power accountable.
Donald Trump sending government forces after critics, opponents, even those who are completely nonpartisan, but he views as insufficiently obedient, across a whole array of institutions. Today, Trump announced a politically connected replacement for the Fed chair, Jerome Powell, even though Powell's term runs for another 5 months. And also, he is, remember, still being criminally investigated by Trump's DOJ. Then, of course, there was Wednesday's FBI raid of the Fulton County Election Office in Georgia, where they took boxes and boxes and boxes of ballots. That, of course, office and that county and that state, the boogeyman of Trump's 2020 election lies. Feds hauling 700 boxes full of voter ballots. In an operation apparently overseen by Tulsi Gabbard, the director of national intelligence, who has no law enforcement powers, but who is apparently using her access to become a leading MAGA election truther with the full force of the federal government behind her. Again, all this is law enforcement. Law enforcement. Coming from an administration that has no qualms about breaking the law when it comes to just about anything, including releasing the Epstein files. Today, 42 days after they were legally required to release all the files, they decided to get around to it. Deputy Attorney Todd Blanche, Attorney General Todd Blanche, Trump defense attorney who still views the president as his client, according to officials he's worked with, announced the dump of 3 million new Epstein documents. Now, Todd Blanche is the same guy, remember, last year who kicked off the whole controversy when he wrote the memo saying we've looked at every single file and we've concluded there's nothing further to see here. There's no client list. No one else is implicated. We're shutting it all down. That Todd Blanche, the one who signed his name to that document saying we have already looked at it all, announced they got around, I guess, to looking at the documents. He said the delays were to protect the victims. They weren't protecting Trump. And now their job here is done.
Today's release marks the end of a very comprehensive document identification and review process. After submitting the final report to Congress as required under the Act and publishing the written justifications for redactions in the Federal Register, the department's obligations under the Act will be completed.
This is now the second time that Todd Blanche has told us there's nothing more to see here. We're going to have a lot more on what we are learning from those files later in the show, and there are some pretty shocking things in them. Blanche also said there was an investigation opened into Alex Preddy's death, though he suggested it wasn't a civil rights probe and he declined to give any details. He also defended the raid of that election office in Georgia and Tulsi Gabbard's role in it. And he ignored a question about the numerous federal prosecutors in Minneapolis who've resigned in protest, particularly ones who appeared to have resigned because Blanche's office told them to open a criminal investigation not into the person that shot Renee Good, but into the dead woman Renee Good after a federal agent shot and killed her. The point here is that federal law enforcement increasingly, day by day, acts at the directions and the whims of the man in the White House who aspires to be a dictator. And in the last few weeks, they have shot and killed 2 citizens who stood in their way. The wolf is at the door, America.